Picture the smell of salt and vinegar drifting off the promenade, gulls squealing overhead, and a steamed-up cafe window keeping out the drizzle. For millions of British families, the seaside holiday meant one glorious week of eating things you would never touch at home. We're counting down 25 forgotten seaside cafe meals that once defined the great British holiday, from vinegar-soaked shellfish to towering glasses of ice cream, flavors that faded the moment the package holiday to Spain took over. Which one tops the list? Let's begin the countdown at number 25. Number 25. Potted shrimps carried the taste of Morecambe Bay to cafe tables all along the northwest coast. Fishermen scooped tiny brown shrimps from the sands at low tide, boiled them by the hundredweight, then set them in butter spiced with mace, nutmeg, and a whisper of cayenne. By the mid-1950s, a small pot cost around a shilling, served cold with triangles of thin toast and a wedge of lemon. Holidaymakers sat at checkered tablecloths, prizing the little shrimps free with the tip of a knife, the spiced butter melting warm against the toast. Children found them fiddly and strange, but grandmothers ate them with quiet reverence, remembering a coast that fed itself from its own tide. When frozen prawns and prawn rings filled the supermarket freezers, the fiddly potted shrimp lost its place. Today it survives only in a handful of Lancashire delis, a buttery ghost of the bay. Number 24, Winkles with a pin, were the Saturday afternoon ritual of the seafront, a treat that asked for patience and a steady hand. Boiled black sea snails were sold by the saucer from stalls along the prom, doused in vinegar and a fierce shake of white pepper. For a few pence in the early 1960s, you got a heaped dish and a single pin, and the whole pleasure lay in the winkling flicking off the little horny cap, teasing out the coiled meat and popping it whole. Families sat on damp benches facing the sea, working through the saucer in companionable silence, the vinegar sharp on cold fingers. Children competed to see who could empty their shell without breaking the meat. Cheap, briny, and utterly of its place, the Winkle stall could not survive the rise of the burger kiosk and the amusement arcade. The pins were packed away, and a quiet coastal ceremony vanished with them. Number 23, Cockles and whelks piled high on the shellfish stall were the beating heart of the British seaside promenade. Wooden barrows and tiled kiosks lined the front at Southend, Leigh-on-Sea, and Blackpool, their trays glistening with cockles, mussels, and thick rubbery whelks. Drowned in malt vinegar and eaten from a paper cone or a chipped saucer, a portion cost about sixpence in 1958, cheap enough that a family could graze their way along the prom. The tang of vinegar and brine hung in the sea air, mingling with candy floss and diesel from the pleasure boats. Fathers swore by the whelks, chewy and defiant. Children preferred the sweeter cockles, small and yielding. Oral histories from Essex recall the queues 3 deep on a bank holiday, the shouts of the stallholders, the gulls wheeling for scraps. As tastes turned squeamish and package tours emptied the resorts, the great shellfish stalls dwindled, taking a whole seaside language of vinegar and salt with them. Number 22. Whitebait, fried crisp and golden, were the elegant end of the seaside cafe menu, a dish that turned the smallest fish into a small feast. These were tiny silver fish, no longer than a finger, tossed in seasoned flour and plunged whole into hot dripping until they crackled. Served by the plateful with brown bread and butter and a wedge of lemon, a portion cost around 1 6 in the mid-1950s. You ate them by the handful, heads, tails, and all, the crisp coating giving way to a delicate flash of the sea. Coastal cafes in Kent and the West Country made their name on a good plate of whitebait, and courting couples ordered it to feel a cut above the chip shop crowd. The sizzle from the kitchen promised something special, yet whitebait demanded skill and fresh fish daily, and as frozen breaded portions took over, the humble crisp handful slipped quietly off the board. Number 21. The dressed crab sandwich was the taste of a proper coastal town, a treat you simply could not get inland. Fishmongers and café cooks picked the crabs by hand, separating the sweet white meat of the claws from the rich brown meat of the body, seasoning it with a little salt, pepper, and a squeeze of lemon before piling it between thick slices of white bread. In the early 1960s, a crab sandwich and a pot of tea cost under 2 shillings, and it tasted of the very sea you could watch through the window. Children turned up their noses at the strong brown meat, but adults savored it slowly, the bread soft and the filling cool and rich. Oral histories from Cromer and Cornwall recall the pride of the local crab, landed that morning. As chilled pre-packaged sandwiches conquered the motorway services and the supermarket shelf, the freshly dressed crab retreated to the specialist stall, a luxury where it was once ordinary. Number 20. Jellied eels brought the flavour of the London East End straight to the Essex coast, following the day trippers down the estuary to Southend. Eels were chopped, boiled in a stock spiced with allspice and bay, then left to set in their own savoury jelly, sold cold from tubs at seafront stalls. For a few pence in the 1950s, a bowl came with a splash of chili vinegar, eaten standing up in the sea breeze. The texture divided the nation. Cool, wobbling jelly around firm, delicate meat. Cockney families ate them with relish, a taste of home carried to the seaside, while others recoiled at the sight of the trembling grey slabs. Diaries recall the stalls doing a roaring trade on a Whitsun bank holiday, the queues of day trippers stretching along the front. As the East End scattered and tastes turned, the jellied eel stall grew rare, a proud, peculiar survivor of a vanishing world. Number 19. Frothy coffee poured from a hissing chrome machine was the height of seaside glamour when the espresso bars arrived in the late 1950s. Imported Gaggia machines gave British teenagers something their parents had never known, a tall glass cup of coffee crowned with a proper foam, dusted with chocolate powder. In resort towns from Brighton to Blackpool, the coffee bar became the place to be seen, a jukebox in the corner, and a frothy coffee costing about 9p. The steam, the clatter, the smell of roasted beans were exotic and thrilling in a nation raised on tea. Young couples nursed a single glass for an hour, watching the world go by. Yet as instant coffee flooded the home and fashions moved on, the espresso bar faded and the frothy coffee in a glass became a memory of a briefly glamorous decade. Number 18. Dandelion and burdock, sharp and dark and faintly medicinal, was the fizzy drink that quenched a hot day on the front. Sold at temperance bars and café counters, it was brewed from roots in a tradition that stretched back centuries, poured cold and sweet from a tall bottle. In the early 1960s, a glass cost around 3p, and children begged for it as a change from ordinary lemonade. The flavour was unlike anything else. Earthy, spicy, a little like licorice, staining the tongue and fizzing on the way down. Alongside its cousin sarsaparilla, it was the drink of the northern seaside, poured at grand tiled bars in Blackpool and Morecambe. Diaries recall the ceremony of the temperance bar, all polished brass and marble counters. As mass-produced cola swept in from America and the old bars closed, Dandelion and burdock retreated to the corner shop bottle, a shadow of the fizzing glass, once poured with pride. Number 17. Vimto, that deep purple cordial, was the taste of the northern seaside for generations of children. Invented in Manchester in 1908 from a secret blend of fruits, herbs, and spices, it was poured at café counters up and down the Lancashire coast, mixed with water or served fizzing from the fountain. A glass cost about 2p in the 1950s, and it stained lips and jumpers a rich, unmistakable purple. Children clamoured for it on a hot afternoon, the the sweet, spiced flavor like nothing they could name. Mothers kept a bottle of the cordial for treats, a splash in a beaker to keep the little ones happy on the tram to the front. Oral histories from the Northwest recall Vimto as the drink of childhood summers, tied forever to the smell of the sea and the roar of the pier. Though the brand still survives, the cafe counter ritual, with the fountain, the tall glass, and the purple grin, has largely slipped away. Number 16. A pot of tea and bread and butter was the unglamorous foundation on which every seaside cafe was built. Before the meal even arrived, the waitress set down a fat brown teapot, a jug of milk, and a plate of white bread cut thick and spread edge to edge with butter. For under $1 in the 1950s, a family sheltering from the rain could sit for an hour over a bottomless pot, warming their hands and drying their macks. The tea came strong and dark, poured through a battered strainer, refilled from an urn that hissed all day behind the counter. Children folded the bread and butter into parcels. Fathers dunked it in the gravy of whatever came next. It was never the star, always the setting, the quiet ritual that made a cafe feel like a refuge. As self-service cafeterias and paper cups took over, the brown pot and the buttered plate quietly disappeared from the table. Number 15. Toasted tea cakes, split and dripping with butter, were the perfect answer to a grey afternoon when the tide was in and the rain was coming down. The cafe cook toasted the fruited buns under the grill until the currants caught and the edges crisped, then buttered them so generously the melt ran down your wrist. Served with a pot of tea for about 9p in the early 1960s, a tea cake meant shelter, warmth, and the small luxury of being waited on. Steam rose from the plate. The smell of toasting fruit filled the little room. Families crowded the window tables, watching the sea churn grey and cold, glad of somewhere dry to sit. Children picked out the currants. Grandmothers cut theirs into neat quarters. It asked for nothing and gave real comfort. As the traditional cafe gave way to the fast food counter, the properly toasted, properly buttered tea cake became a rarity, remembered fondly by anyone who ever waited out a storm. Number 14. The cream tea crowned the cafe table in Devon and Cornwall, a small ceremony of scones, jam, and clotted cream that visitors travelled miles to taste. Warm scones were split and loaded, cream first or jam first, a debate that could divide a whole county, then washed down with a pot of proper tea. In the 1960s, a full cream tea cost about 2 shillings, a treat that felt like indulgence itself against a backdrop of harbour and gull. The clotted cream, thick and yellow and crusted on top, was the true star, spread in scandalous quantities on the still, warm scone. Children licked it from their fingers. Couples lingered over the last crumbs. Oral histories from the West Country recall the pride of the farmhouse tea garden, the cream made that morning. As chains and pre-packed scones spread, the genuine farmhouse cream tea, cream so thick it stood in peaks, became harder and harder to find. Number 13. Ham, egg, and chips was the honest workhorse of the Seaside Cafe menu, the hot meal a family reached for when the shellfish felt too strange and the budget too tight. A thick slice of boiled ham, a fried egg with a soft golden yolk, and a mountain of chips. All for about $1.09 in the mid-1950s, with bread and butter and a pot of tea thrown in. It arrived fast and filling, the yolk bursting to coat the chips, the ham salty and generous. This was the meal that fed a whole family without emptying the holiday purse, the plate a child could finish and a father could rely on. Oral histories recall the clatter of the busy cafe at 1 o'clock, every table taken, the cook flipping eggs by the dozen. Simple, cheap, and dependable, it defined the British holiday lunch. As frozen ready meals and burger vans took over the front, this steaming plate of plain, good food slowly faded from the board. Number 12. Scampi in a basket announced that the Seaside Café had gone upmarket, the very height of holiday sophistication in the 1970s. Plump breadcrumbed scampi, deep-fried golden, were served with a heap of chips in a little wicker basket lined with paper, a wedge of lemon, and a pot of tartar sauce on the side. At around 3 shillings, it felt like fine dining to a family used to plain fare, the wicker basket itself a mark of somewhere special. The scampi crunched, then gave way to sweet, soft seafood inside. The tartar was tangy and exotic. Courting couples ordered it to impress. Children marveled at the novelty of eating from a basket. Oral histories recall scampi in a basket as the taste of a Britain briefly flush with new money and new ideas. Yet as pub grub grew tired and the wicker basket became a joke, this once glamorous dish slid into parody, then out of memory altogether. Number 11. The prawn cocktail was the seaside starter that felt like pure luxury, a glass of glamour set down before the main event. Cold pink prawns nestled on a bed of shredded lettuce, smothered in a Marie Rose sauce of mayonnaise, ketchup, and a drop of Worcestershire, dusted with paprika and served in a stemmed glass. In the 1970s, a prawn cocktail cost about 2 shillings, and it looked like something from a grand hotel. Diners ate it slowly with a small fork, savoring the cool prawns and the sweet, tangy sauce, a slice of brown bread and butter alongside. For families used to plainer things, it was the taste of arriving somewhere better. Oral histories recall the prawn cocktail as the smart choice, the order that showed you knew how to dine out. As tastes moved on and the dish became a byword for dated cooking, the pink glass of prawns quietly left the seaside table. Number 10. The Cornish pasty came into its own at the seaside, a whole meal you could carry in one hand along the harbour wall. Once the food of tin miners, its thick crimped crust sealed in beef, potato, swede and onion, seasoned with plenty of pepper and baked until golden. On the Cornish coast in the 1960s, a pasty cost about 9 pence, warm from the bakery and sturdy enough to eat on the move, the peppery gravy soaking into the pastry. Families bought them by the bagful for a day on the beach, the crimped edge a handle to grip with sandy fingers. Children ate towards the middle, saving the best for last. The smell of baking pastry drew queues out of the door. Oral histories recall the pasty as the perfect harbour food, filling and portable and cheap. As factory-made versions spread nationwide, the genuine hand-crimped seaside pasty, made fresh that morning, became a treasure rather than the everyday food it once was. Number 9. Pie and mash with liquor followed the East End crowds to the Essex resorts, a plateful of comfort that spoke of home. A minced beef pie with a soft top and a crisp base was set beside a scoop of mash, the whole plate flooded with green liquor, a parsley sauce made, traditionally, from the water the eels were cooked in. For under a shilling in the 1950s, it filled a working family for pennies, eaten in tiled shops that gleamed with marble and mirrors. The liquor pooled bright green around the mash. A splash of chili vinegar cut through the richness. Day trippers from Bethnal Green ate it in Southend and felt at home a whole coast away. Oral histories recall the pie and mash shop as a sanctuary of familiar flavors by the sea. As the old communities scattered and tastes changed, these gleaming shops grew rare, and the green liquor faded to a memory of a vanished London by the tide. Number 8. Iced buns and rock cakes crowded the glass counter of every seaside cafe, the cheap, sweet treats that kept children quiet and content. The iced bun was a soft finger of enriched dough topped with a slick of white icing. The rock cake, a rough, craggy little cake studded with currants and dusted with sugar, so named for its bumpy shape rather than its texture. A penny or tuppence bought one in the early 1960s, pointed out through the glass by an eager child. The icing cracked sweetly. The rock cake crumbled, its currants sweet and chewy. Mothers bought a bag to hand round on the beach, keeping small hands busy between paddles. As industrial bakery packets took over and the cafe ovens went cold, these humble, honest cakes lost their place behind the glass and slipped away. Number 7. Hot ring doughnuts, fresh from the kiosk on the front, filled the sea air with a smell no child could resist. A machine in the window dropped rings of batter into bubbling oil, where they turned and browned before being tossed hot in sugar and handed over in a paper bag. In the 1960s, a bag of 5 cost about 6pence. So hot you had to juggle them, the sugar sticking to your fingers and your chin. The smell of frying dough and warm sugar drifted for 100 yards down the prom, drawing families like a spell. You ate them straight away, burning your mouth, unable to wait. Oral histories recall the donut kiosk as the irresistible temptation of the seafront walk, the queue forming just from the smell. As the traditional resorts declined and the kiosks were boarded up, the ritual of the hot, fresh donut, sugar on the wind, bag warm in the hand, faded from the British coast. Number 6. Candy floss spun on a stick was pure seaside magic, a cloud of sugar conjured before a child's astonished eyes. At the fairground and along the prom, a whirring drum spun melted sugar into fine pink threads that an attendant gathered onto a paper cone until it swelled to the size of a head. For 3pence in the 1950s, a child held a great pink cloud that dissolved to nothing the moment it touched the tongue. The sweetness was startling, the texture a trick, solid to look at, gone in an instant. Faces and fingers ended up sticky and pink. Parents despaired and paid up anyway. Oral histories recall candy floss as the essence of the day out, tied forever to the lights of the pier and the music of the carousel. Though it lingers at fairs today, the Seaside candy floss stall, spinning its pink clouds against the sea, has grown scarce as the great resorts have quietened. Number 5. Tinned fruit salad and evaporated milk was the pudding that ended 1,000 seaside cafe dinners, a small bowl of sweetness that felt like a proper treat. A ladle of tinned fruit cocktail, peaches, pears, grapes, and a lone glaced cherry in thin syrup, was tipped into a glass dish and drowned in a generous pour of cold carnation, evaporated milk. For about 6pence in the 1950s, it delivered colour, sweetness, and a hint of luxury after a plate of ham and chips. The evaporated milk pooled thick and creamy around the bright fruit. Children fished for the cherry and fought over the last spoonful of syrup. This was pudding when fresh cream was dear and out of season, and it never disappointed. Oral histories recall the little glass dish as the perfect end to a holiday meal. As fresh fruit and fridge desserts became everyday, the tinned fruit and evaporated milk faded, its sweet, creamy simplicity now a taste of another age. Number 4. The banana split turned a seaside cafe into a palace of ice cream for the price of a few shillings. A split banana was laid in a long boat-shaped dish, 3 scoops of ice cream nestled along its length, then buried under raspberry sauce, chopped nuts, a swirl of squirty cream, and a crowning glaced cherry. In the 1960s, this extravagance cost about 2 shillings, and its arrival at the table stopped conversation dead. Children stared, then attacked, spooning through the cold ice cream and the sweet banana, the sauce running bright across the dish. It was too big to finish and glorious to fail at. Oral histories recall the banana split as the reward for good behavior, the treat that made a holiday feel like heaven. As soft-serve vans and wrapped lollies took over, the grand cafe sundae in its boat-shaped dish grew rare, and the ceremony of the banana split slipped quietly into nostalgia. Number 3. The Mr. Whippy with a 99 flake was the crowning ice cream of the British seaside, dispensed from a chiming van or a seafront kiosk to a queue of impatient children. A swirl of soft white ice cream was piped high into a cone, then a chocolate flake pushed in at an angle, the whole thing costing about 9p by the late 1960s. The soft serve melted fast in the sun, running down the cone and over small fingers in a race against the heat. Children begged for raspberry sauce. Monkey's blood, they called it, dribbled over the top. The chime of the van drew them from the beach like a call to prayer. Oral histories recall the 99 flake as the definitive sound and taste of a British summer, the swirl and the chocolate stick inseparable from the seaside. Though the vans still chime, the great seafront queues have thinned, and the soft white swirl now tastes of a quieter, faded coast. Number 2. The Knickerbocker glory towered over the seaside cafe table, the most magnificent pudding a child could ever hope to order. Built in a tall, fluted glass, it layered ice cream, jelly, tinned fruit, raspberry sauce, and whipped cream into a striped column, topped with nuts, a wafer and a cherry, and served with a spoon so long it barely reached the bottom. In the 1960s, this masterpiece cost about £0.50, a fortune to a child, reserved for the last day of the holiday, or a birthday treat. You dug down through the layers, each spoonful a different sweet surprise, racing the melt as it slid down the glass. Oral histories recall the Knickerbocker glory as the ultimate ambition of every seaside child, pointed at longingly through the cafe window. As tastes simplified and the grand cafes closed, the towering glass and its long spoon vanished, taking with them the pinnacle of childhood seaside dreams. And finally, in first place, fish and chips crowned the British seaside as the meal that defined the holiday itself. Fresh cod or haddock in a crisp golden batter, a heap of thick-cut chips, salt and malt vinegar shaken over the top, all wrapped in newspaper and eaten with wooden forks on the seafront wall. In the 1950s, a fish supper cost around 1 and 6, cheap enough that a whole family could eat like royalty facing the sea. The batter shattered. The chips were soft and steaming, the vinegar soaked warm through the paper. Eaten outside in the salt wind, or inside at a formica table with bread and butter and a pot of tea, it was the taste of the coast for every generation. The gulls hovered for scraps. Children guarded their portions with their lives. Oral histories recall fish and chips by the sea as the single memory that outlasts all others. Though the chip shop endures, the ritual, newspaper wrap, seafront wall, the roar of the tide, has faded with the resorts that gave it meaning. From the buttery potted shrimps of Morecambe Bay to the mighty fish supper eaten on the seafront wall, these 25 meals were the taste of the great British holiday, a world of formica tables, tin teapots, and vinegar on the wind. Most vanished not because they failed us, but because the crowds boarded planes for Spain and left the piers to the gulls. If just one of these brought your holidays flooding back, tell me in the comments which one you'd order first. Because these weren't just meals, they were summer itself.